Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PE Guru's channel. I'm your host Shri Iyer, and Gunner Sights is back today. We have two returning generals. General Harimohan Singh couldn't make it. He is flying and his flight got delayed. But we have General Raj Shukla and General Ravi Shankar. Let's welcome the good generals. Namaskar, sir. How are you?
Namaskar, and thanks a lot for calling us once again. It's so nice to be back here.
So, viewers, Sunil Gavaskar is going to open the batting and he's going to set the stage for today's topic, the book that General Raj Shukla has written. The very interesting book because it affects all of us. It's a civilian and military collaboration. How does this whole partnership work? It's something new for India because India has been weaned on public sector undertakings for everything. And now we are trying to privatize some aspects. What are the complementing things, what are the friction points, all that we'll get to hear. Over to you, General Ravi Shankar, and then after that to General Raj Shukla. Over to you, sir.
Oh, thanks a lot, Shri, for giving me the lead. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate General Raj Shukla for this wonderful book on civil-military fusion. Could we have the slide on, please? Yeah, this is the book. He's written this book on civil-military fusion as a metric of national power and comprehensive security. It was released a few days back in the USI. This is the book launch where you can see the CDS, a closer shot. The CDS, the Raksha Mantri, flanked by the CDS and the Chief of Army Staff. And of course, on the right further of the CDS is the Director of USI, that's General B.K. Sharma. And all of them are listening with rapt attention to what General Raj Shukla had to say about his book. So I'm sure for the rest of the evening, we are all going to be looking at him with rapt attention. And I do hope all viewers who are watching this pay particular attention. And all of you must subscribe to Gunner Shot and to P Gurus because this is where you'll get such intellectual thinking being put on, out for all of us. And this is not only good for those of you who are seeing it, it's also good for your children and your near and dear ones, for them to understand what goes into making a nation great. Right? Yeah, please take the slides off. Before I go further, I'd like to put in perspective what is civil-military fusion all about. Right? I'm sure General Raj Shukla will explain it much better because he's written the book. Okay, but I will give you a background so you understand. Civil-military fusion is all about how to make a nation work to one aim for one purpose as one entity, the civilian and the military part of it, so that we could go ahead. Historically, you'll see that nations which have had a strong military structure have grown faster. In terms of the larger strength and influence of that nation, as also the lead in technology and their economy, right? And that's how militaries are always important in a nation's life. And if that has to happen, if the army and the navy and the air force or the military has to be the vanguard of progress of a nation, right, then the civil has to get fused intricately with the military and nurture the military to greatness. Right. Now, is this a new process which is a new discovery of Isaac Newton these days? No, it's old. You go back in time, the Britishers did it. Right. The British Raj, as we understand, expanded through a whole lot of civil military fusion. It had its missteps, but it was there. You look at the way the USA came up. US might today influence is all a process or a end process or the end result of civil military fusion. It is said that civil USA produced more tanks, more ships, more guns, more aircraft than Germany, Japan, and Italy put together, the Axis powers, and they just out industrialized them. Right? And in fact, they were rolling out more guns per hour and ships by a week than anyone can imagine. In fact, today's rate of production of China pales in comparison with what USA did in that period between the First and the Second World War. All this was possible only due to civil military fusion. Then the way the atomic bomb, the first atom bomb, and the Manhattan Project, if you see the kind of civil military fusion was there, it's amazing. Was civil military fusion only with USA? No. To a large extent, it was with Russia also. Another great superpower. I won't say Russia, USSR. And today, you see this civil military fusion playing out in China in a big way. In case we have to be a power of consequence, I don't have a doubt in my mind that we need civil military fusion. Of course, do you need it the Chinese way? Definitely not. Do you need it the American way? Maybe, right? But then we need civil military fusion the Indian way. And what is that Indian way? I'm sure is the one which General Raj Shukla has shown in his book. This book is remarkable for one major reason. This is the first book of its kind written by anyone in India. We've all been borrowing concepts from largely, China, without studying the other great powers who have risen. And they have all risen on the basis of civil military fusion. Right? And I'm sure General Raj Shukla, I've not read the book, I'm waiting for it. I've not got my hands around it. But I know him well enough, but he would have given an Indian way in this. And that is what I'll be eager to hear about when he talks about this book. More than talking of the book, I would like him to, I would request him to speak about the very concept of civil military fusion. If you speak of that, that's the book. Right? So that's all I had to say to start with. I have more issues. We'll come back later. Over to you.
Thank you so much, General Ravi Shankar. Thank you so much, sir. General Raj Shukla, a little bit about the making of this book. How come, what made you to write this book? And just talk to us, the thought gets germinated at some point in time. It could be, we are taking a walk and suddenly the thing spark goes off. Why hasn't somebody addressed this need? So I leave the floor to you, sir, from wherever you would like to start about the book. Over to you.
Can I just do a spot of marketing? This is
absolutely.
Please do buy it. I would request all the Gavaskars, Dhonis, P Gurus, everybody, and buy it, tear it to shreds, but do read it, because it is only out of critique that ideas mature. Now I'll get to the nub of the question, which firstly, let me also thank General Shankar for those very kind words. He's always been a very generous, tough but generous boss, which is what we all should be. And just before I come to the book, I would just like to say one thing. I have dedicated this book not to my wife, as most obedient husbands do, but I actually, when I was writing this dedication, I've dedicated it to the lakhs of soldiers, sailors, airmen, genuinely from my heart. This whole ecosystem, which encourages a unique ethos, that of, thinking like men of action and acting like men of thought. This is a unique ethos, unique to the Indian military. And I'm so proud that I have been part of this. And this has been, the young, when I was a youngster, the CEO would say, play your hockey well, but the next morning the presentation should be equally good. There were no distinctions drawn. It was an all-round demeanor. You were meant to be good in whatever you did. And that is actually the basis of civil military fusion. Now, let me just go back to how it started. In 2009, I, as a colonel, was marking time to pick up my next rank as a brigadier. And I went on a year's fellowship to the Institute of Defense Analysis in Delhi. And my topic was some Afghanistan. I forget what the topic was. But when I went there, the Director General IDSA, and, he was Mr. Sisodia from the IAS, and the DDG was Mr. Matthews, again from the IDS. So Mr. Sisodia was to go to Pakistan to give a talk on civil-military relations. And the theme of the talk was that India is in a very happy space, but Pakistan is in a mess. And I was asked to write the script. So I wrote the script, but in the process of writing the script, I came across two things. When I did my research, and this is another thing I put in the book, this power of original research, investigation is something which we must imbibe in our lives. Application of mind. It will help us profit personally and institutionally. So when I did that research, and there were a very good library in IDSA, and those days IDSA was at its peak. In a week, twice we would get to hear Mr. Subramaniam, people like General Dower, Commodore Jasjeet Singh, cutting edge conversations in national security. And so in the course of my research, I started studying the American and Chinese experience. And I saw America, USA, there were books and books and articles written on CMR in the Reagan era, CMR in the Nixon era, CMR in the Kennedy era, what the relationship should be between the civil and military polities. And, I came across some remarkable authors. For example, one of the author argues that the ordering of civil-military relations lies at the heart of a nation's security. I said, heart? India mein to baat hi nahi hoti hai. All that we were talking in India was civilian control of the military. And if you speak to Admiral Arun Prakash and all, he would say that even when he went to meet the Raksha Mantri, it used to be Mr. Pranab Mukherjee in those days, he would say, Admiral, you're very right, but please tell the Defense Secretary. So, in the theories of civil-military relations, there is the political principle, and they are two co-equal agents, bureaucratic and military. Both give advice to the political agent, and may the best man win. India, may the poor military was first telling the civil servant, often uninformed, and all kinds of, convoluted advice would go to the political class, because we had turned the theories of CMR on their head. It was never meant to be that way. How can a naval chief go and tell the defense secretary he's got a position of great importance, but he's not a combatant. Anyway, so that was the kind of stuff. I got to know this. Then it said that if the pattern of interaction between the civil and military polities is productive, you will produce a society that is alive to the nuances of national security and wise to the uses of military power. Look how profound. Alive to the nuances of national security and wise to the uses of military power. और हमारे यहाँ क्या कहानी थी? The political classes and many more, with a few exceptions, were largely uninformed because the civil-military relationship was not vibrant. Look at this other quote by Peter Fever. He says that in a democracy, the civilian is right even when he's wrong. The civilian has a right to be wrong. That is how overweening the political control of the military is. Political control. Militaries only salute and obey. Having said that, now the theorists say that once the civil-military relationship stabilizes, then because they are secure in each other, because there is trust, the civil and military segments of society, they move their relationship to productivity and higher, vistas of combat delivery and strategic outcomes. So once the relationship is settled, as is happily the case in India, we should be rapidly moving towards delivery and outcomes. But we were stuck in a rather moribund CMR, where the relationship was, the military was in control, but it was not productive. And they are, 62, 65 are all outcomes of this. Let me tell you, I've quoted Fareed Zakaria from the post-American world, and he makes this quote. He says in the 1950s, Prime Minister Nehru in the MOD saw a few military officers in uniform, and he flew into a rage. Now, Fareed, who's educated in the American system, says, if military officers are not to be seen in the MOD, where may they be seen? But this was the flavor of those times, because some of them, the fears were legitimate of coups happening here, coups happening there. But once the relationship went beyond coup-proofing, it had to move towards fusion. So, this is how it started, and the idea got into my head. And the ideas, and I churned out a paper on CMR, which was pretty immature, juvenile. I blasted the civil bureaucracy, and no one would publish the paper. The first person who published the paper was Brigadier Gurmeet Kanwal and General Dhruv Katoch. It was many years later that I got to know that the paper had gone to General Malik, VP Malik. When I was an army commander, he told me your paper had come to you, me when I was a colonel, and I, whatever, complimented it or whatever. I sent that paper to Arun Shore, Mr. Arun Shore. I don't know, because you required an external referee or some such thing. I'm just recounting it not to boast, but how my morale got uplifted. And Mr. Shore had just, he had ceased being a minister, but he was a big guy. And now I was a brigadier in staff college. So I sent him a mail that I want to meet you, sir. And he said, send me the paper. And when I went to staff college, look at the greatness of this man. I, as a brigadier, drove up. He was standing outside to receive me, sir, in the guest house of staff college. So I told him, sir, you're standing outside. He says, I have such great respect for the military. And he was sirring me through the conversation. Anyway, he discussed the paper, and I still remember the compliment he gave. In the email said, Dear Colonel, thank you for a lovely paper. The only suggestion I have is that Harvard is spelt with a V and not a W. So that really gave me the kick. I said, yeah, I write well also. And then I got consumed in the army. I mean, all that happened. But the idea was in my head and very close to my heart. Because I felt that in India, the CMR relationship had been distorted completely. And it was, strategically not productive. And the General V.K. Singh episode, the General Karyappa episode, the General Themaya episode, they were all consequences of a, shall I say, juvenile CMR relationship. And so let me now make two more points. When I studied the the Chinese system, I was amazed. President Xi uses an aphorism to explain military-civil fusion. The Chinese call it military-civil because the military leads. He says, why build walls of granite between cylinders of excellence? Common sense. Then he goes on to head this military-civil fusion commission in China since 2017. And now look at the outcomes. They are so integrated, say BYD. When BYD manufactures their car carriers, they consult the PLA. And the PLA tells them that these car carriers, with a few modifications, will also help us in the Taiwan contingency. So BYD says, cost, don't worry. Cost deltas will be borne by us. Look at how smart. और यहाँ हमारा एक सिविल कैरियर बनेगा, एक मिलिट्री कैरियर बनेगा, फिर वो 6 साल इंटीग्रेट होगा. I said the Chinese are so commonsensical. I'll give you another example. The CSSC, the poster child of MCF in China. It is structured in 4 tiers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tier 1 and 2 have links with the PLA. Tier 3 and 4 publicly have links commercially. But all the technology and capital that come to tier 3 and 4 are smartly transferred to tier 1 and 2 by a very clever design architecture. Now, does it surprise you? They don't have, like we have, naval shipyards, civil shipyards, alag. They have a combined CSSC. CSSC is powering both global commerce and a world-class navy. So in 2024, we all know, CSSC produced more shipping tonnage than the Americans have produced since World War II. Global commerce. And they are powering a 500-ship navy, which on American admission is, going to be a challenge for them. Robotics. Robotics today is of course in hotels, in commerce, business. It has gone to their ammunition factories. So they are churning out missiles and ammunition at an unbelievable rate. 10,000 cruise missiles a week. So they are so commonsensical about it. I'll give you example after example. Startups. If you're a bright startup in China, your first order, Sriji, will be given to you by the PLA. You'll be surprised कि मैं तो पंखे बना रहा हूँ, PLA क्यों order दे रहा है? Because they will use from 100, they will spot the bright startups. If you're very bright, say like General Shankar, then I say, all right, I will hold. Don't worry about the commercial, the money. I will hold your hand till commercial viability. And if you are particularly brilliant, I will tell you, tum sab paisa chhod do, come with me. Together we will destroy that American startup lurking in the background. Military-civil fusion. Wonderful. The Americans, General Shankar was saying, prior to the collapse of the Berlin Wall, Ford made cars and satellites. Chrysler made cars and missiles. I think there's some cereal company, General Mills or something, made cereals, anaj, artillery guns, and inertial guided systems, civil military integration. Till some fools entered their system and they said no, defense alag, civil alag, and therefore they are in a mess today, the Americans, and they are recovering. So the Americans regressed. The Chinese have mastered it. So I said, what about us? And I did some research and I came across this wonderful Saraswati, Lakshmi or Durga ka Mishran, wise beyond measure. That Saraswati means respect your universities. Nalanda, Allahabad University, Oxford of the East, or whatever, many more. Make sure you get high-grade talent. That talent will produce technologies. Talent and technologies together will give you Lakshmi, wealth creation. And from that Lakshmi, use some to nurse your instruments of power. Durga. Indian thought till we went post 47, borrowed Western concepts and murdered them. So I'll tell you how we murdered them. Third, fourth pay commission, I was a colonel and I was dealing with a bureaucrat who, we were saying we want technology in the military and all. It was a lady, I don't remember her name. I said, ma'am, we want the best people to come here. She says the best people don't need to come to the military. I said, where should they go? IITs. I said, what about military? Military is not a priority with India. We don't need the best people. These were the assertions of bureaucrats, top bureaucrats, very respectfully silly to the core. Mr. Parikar, when he was the defense minister, set up a team for, DPP and all. General Shankar is aware of that. He was at the forefront when those artillery guns were being procured and all. And he got some smart civilians, including one chap from Harvard, a very young guy, but from Harvard. And he sent that team to the war college where I was the commandant, and they were trying to work out the issues. Now that guy from Harvard would go on about process. I said, yeah, process theek hai, outcome ka kya hoga? So in a particular exchange, he told me curtly, sir, when process conflicts with outcomes, I will prioritize process. Now this is not civil military, but in a larger sense, when the civil and military don't see eye to eye, you will get this nonsense. For 30 years, we got only process, DPP, DPM. Now, while we were wasting time on this, I'll give you one more example. What the smart countries were doing. So today, China is a 3-aircraft carrier or a 4-aircraft carrier navy, pretty powerful, stealth, electromagnetic, propulsion. But do we know that in 1997-98, they did not have an aircraft carrier, not even the know-how. So what do they start doing? They pick up a basketball player from the Guangzhou military region, Hu Zupin. Why? Because he's tall, good looking. And why do they need him? Because nobody is going to give any cruiser, any carrier to the PLA for military needs. So he poses as a business tycoon based in Hong Kong. This is a true story from Rush Doshi's book and many other sources. And they have their eyes on a carrier called Varyag, which is lying in one of the Ukrainian shipyards. The state backs him, the Huaxia Bank, and I've recorded this in my book, buys a $30 million villa for him in Hong Kong with plush offices in Kiev and Beijing. So when people come, he makes a whole pitch of how he's looking for a casino in Macau. Actually, that is a front to buy the aircraft carrier. This is a true story. He lands up in the Ukrainian shipyards, and after 2 years of a lot of money, keeping the Ukrainians liquored up and all that, he gets their hands on their carrier. He comes back to Beijing, and the boss of the CMT tells him, go back. We want the blueprints. Blueprints which have now led to Fujian and all that. So he goes back. Another 1.5 years, he gets the blueprints. And then the Varyag carrier is stored from Kiev to Ankara, en route to Dalian in China. In Ankara, it gets stuck in Turkish intelligence and bureaucracies. President Jiang Zemin personally flies into Ankara. And of course, the ostensible thing is talks and all that, opening market to China, but he gets the carrier out. Now, what I'm telling you, while we were, DPP and DPM, endless pieces of paper and clever by half regulations. This is classic Samdam Dandabhed, what our forefathers told us. National interest by means fair or foul. Fair or foul, I will underline. This is what they were doing. And no wonder today they beat the Americans hollow in everything. So it is my assertion, and let me make a, shall I say, let me risk an assertion here. And this, the scholars can contest me on this. If China is beating all democracies today, including USA, one of the metrics is civil military fusion. I put a line in the book that China was living for a while in the sturdy house that Deng built. But it was on the back of CMF that Z has converted that sturdy house into a technologically enabled modern mansion. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. And there are scores of such examples of CMF. Now the Americans have woken up. How have they woken up? When, what is Det 201? When Hegseth and President Trump signed that order of getting the CTOs of Palantir, I think Meta, Thinking Machines Lab, and Anduril into the MOD, they said, let's get technical minds. President Trump and Hegseth said, what is this $950 billion budget? And we are losing everywhere. China is only $300 billion. They are ahead of us. So that 201 came. Why? Now technologically competent guys are going through the fluff in the American budget. And just 1 month down the line, General Shankar and Sriji, what have they discovered? They picked up the repair maintenance system of the Black Hawk. And there was a fin of the fuel tank, external fuel tank. And they said, "Ye kitna mehenga hai?" So Pentagon was paying $144,000 for that fin. And by instinct, because they are technologists, they are businessmen, they know what it is. They reverse engineered it, 3D printed it, and technologically validated it in 40 days because they have the confidence to do it. They are bright minds. I've been an aviator. I would have been told कि सर ये fin है, इस पे कोई chance नहीं लेना क्योंकि ये सर बड़ा आपका जहाज ना वो चला जाएगा. इस पे chance नहीं लेना. $144,000 कहाँ देना? And just guess how much have they costed it? $144,000 to $3,000. And they have validated it and supplied it because they have the confidence. I can't do it. I don't have the technological confidence. Now go back to that bureaucrat who said we don't need high-tech talent. You need high-tech talent in national security. That is the story. So CMF now has got, very lofty goals like statecraft and very practical outcomes. So I'm saying that CMF could be the secret sauce to fuel, fortify, and secure India's rise. And now as the term has matured, it has gone beyond the narrow connotation of civil and military. It actually means talent from anywhere, talent from everywhere. And therefore, I have said in this book that India's startups, business, private sector, public sector, DRDO, civil servants, diplomacies, military officers, every quiver in our statecraft to win the strategic military competition with our adversaries and to strengthen deterrence. So after years of research, the thought being in my head, exploring various systems, and it is a very slim book, only 120 pages because I've cut out all the fluff. I've examined the 3 systems and there is a 45-page roadmap. Please do this. Now the 45 pages, even if we can implement 20 pages, it will be great. And 60 to 70% of CMF initiatives are budget agnostic. They are ideational, they are cultural, they are structural. For example, theatre commands, I must just tell you since we are on this topic. When I was in IDSA, Mr. Subramaniam and Brigadier Kamal and all these people, look how deeply they thought through this. They said, we must get the military out of its defensive crouch. It is stuck in the LACLC. How do we do that? By creating a DIA, a 3-star DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, something like the American DIA boss. He must look at the neighborhood first, then the near abroad regions like West Asia, uh, the region of ASEAN from a military lens. And once he makes inferences in intelligence, they must be shaped by the theater commanders. So theater commands are not about air power alone. Air power is just a speck. It is about this quasi diplomatic visage of looking beyond. So the Western theater commander will look at Pakistan, Afghanistan, West Asia. The Eastern theater commander will look at the chaos at Bangladesh and Myanmar before it comes to your LAC. And the maritime theater commander will connect with IPACOM. I think I've said this on your show last time. There are consequences of not doing all this. If you don't do all this time see what happened. The doors of the White House and the streets of Washington were opened to Asim Munir by Kuruvilla. Why did we not have a 3-star in CENTCOM who could peddle Indian influence? Why don't we have a 3-star in IPACOM who peddles Indian influence, military diplomacy? So there are numerous strands to civil-military fusion. If we start thinking in a convergent manner, so CMF is about collapsing tribalism. Tribalism of any kind needs to go. Whether it is military or it is civil, any kind of tribalism. NSCS, it was meant to be 50% government, 50% non-government. We have gone and staffed it 100% with government. 100% with government. So instead of growing, we have regressed. So I think this is a good edifice to tell you how it all began, how did the idea mature in my head, what the metrics are. And I must address this point with which General Shankar says. See, what is the argument? Ki Raj, don't quote China. We are not China. Arey, bilkul we are not China. उनसे बस थोड़ा पढ़ लो और अपने दिमाग में डाल लो. Don't copy them. Raj, don't quote Americans. Don't quote Americans. अरे अपनी तो सुन लो यार, वो सरस्वती लक्ष्मी दुर्गा वो तो तुम्हारा है. साम दाम दंड भेद is yours. अब कुछ भी नहीं सुनना and you want to go on. This is not fair at all. And my hunch tells me that the time has come. All these silos will grow. Our youth, our youngsters are now far smarter. They will not take these lazy excuses any longer. It is, look at Stratcom. Why should there not be a deputy NSA Stratcom in the NSCS? And he should be from the media world if strategic communications is important. Is it important? I haven't seen such an overwhelming military victory undermined at the altar of strategic communications. So if we don't respect talent, we don't respect these wares, we'll keep making all those mistakes. So civil military fusion is about abandoning status quo, embracing change. It is about prioritizing talent over mediocrity. It is a very comprehensive argument. And I'll just conclude by saying this. We have two choices. Either we are in a... Let me also make this point very fairly to this government. 2014 onwards, some very bold steps have been taken by this government in the realm of civil military fusion. CDS is the Sutradhar of civil military fusion. His job is to coordinate the civil and military, DRDO and the army, startups and military, all that stuff. Atmanirbharta in defense is CMF in the sense that we are getting private sector and startups against a lot of opposition. A lot of opposition. And similarly, defense coming out of the shadows of foreign policy to force and diplomacy to complement and so on and so forth. But given the metrics, I've told you, the way China is galloping ahead on the back of MCF, what the Americans are doing now, and I don't know, you are in USA, Sriji, I just want to make this point, that while China, I think, has done pretty well, once the Americans wake up, there is nobody to beat the Americans. So the Americans just may recover. They are not challenged. They may be a recovering hegemon. And we have to step up our game. So we have two choices. Either we embrace the status quo or we change. And here there's that couplet which comes to mind. कि उम्र भर गालिब वही भूल करता गया, दाग चेहरे पे था, आईना साफ करता गया. तो या तो हम अपना चेहरा साफ कर लें, which is CMF, या आईना साफ करते हैं. So the arguments, what I can recall from the book. I am now open to any questions and anything that General Shankar.
Yeah,
thank you so much, sir. General Shankar, you have some observations. I have some questions,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'll let you go first.
Yeah. But I'd like to put a few things in place. I think what Raj has said is, I have nothing to say add to what he has said in that perspective. I think he's touched all the right bases. I'd like to highlight one issue with our system. Why we have not taken. We are an eight-cylinder vehicle running on four cylinders. That's the way I look at it, right? The reason is this. You see, in any nation, in any constitution, everything you see the the safety, integrity, sovereignty of a nation, territorial integrity, all that is lies with the head of the nation or the guy who's elected to be the head of the nation, the prime minister or the defense minister, the elected representative of the people. The people elect him to keep them safe. And then, by the constitution, the armed forces guy with the hat on, he is mandated, his commission in India, he is commissioned to guard the territorial integrity of the nation. हम शपथ लेते हैं, we'll guard the territorial integrity of the nation over land, sea, air, ye, wo, all that. That's our mandate. Ideally, the guy who, these two chaps who are mandated for the national security and its growth ultimately, because unless a nation is not secure, it will never grow, are supposed to be responsible. But in India, we have one guy called the bureaucrat. He is the pipeline. Unfortunately, he is the pipeline between the military and the uh, politician. The politician is responsible, the military is responsible, but this bureaucrat comes in, this troika, it becomes from a one line, one single pipeline into a troika. Now, this troika is dangerous in India and it's operating. It's operating even today. Okay. I mean, let's be very clear. And unless this troika doesn't go, civil military fusion will not happen. And if civil military fusion doesn't happen, we might become a 4 trillion economy. But that will happen maybe 5 months late, 6 months late, 6 years late. I don't know. Maybe we'll become a 10 trillion economy. Right? Maybe we'll become Viksit Bharat. But if the civil military fusion doesn't happen, we'll not be Viksit Bharat by 2047. On that, I'm very sure. Okay? Because as Bharat becomes Viksit, you need to look beyond. You need to look, beyond Mediterranean. You need to look beyond East Pacific. You like to look up to North Pole. That's our thinking, no? Can we go use the North Pole route? Can we go IMEC to Piraeus and beyond? Can we go to Philippines and beyond and Papua New Guinea? Our prime minister goes there. Why? If you go there, you need to have military presence there. If you need to have military presence there, you need to have the capability to do all those things. And for that, you have to be in tune with the latest technologies and do everything. You can't say, मैं 19वीं शताब्दी का जो भी होता था वही उसी के साथ मैं लड़ूंगा नहीं. Like, the Tibetans fought against young husband's army in the last century. You can't be that way and build a wall and say, I'll fight with you bows and arrows. That's where we are at some level. At some level, we are there. I always maintain that the Indian armed forces are modern enough and capable enough to guard the territorial integrity of this nation. We'll not falter there. But to support a nation which is a developed nation by 2047 is a different dream. And that dream will only come through civil military fusion. And I'm sure in fact, and Lord got my hands on his book. Those, pages, the Indian metric is something which I'd like to read. And that's what I've been striving for sitting in this IIT. What is a retired general doing in IIT? Talking to young guys who are just coming. What is this? Right. Now, having said this, I'd like to put one point about civil military fusion. Okay. Which needs to be understood. There's a very important aspect of civil military fusion, and that is politico military fusion. If you don't have that politico military fusion, things are going to go bad. And that is the most delicate fusion in this part of the civil military fusion. Why am I bringing this about? I'm sure General Raj Shukla in his book has extolled, and rightly so, what China has achieved in terms of civil military fusion over the past few years. But where it is failing is in this politico military fusion. There's a difference between when you say civil military fusion and politico military fusion. Politico military fusion is a subset of the civil military fusion. If tomorrow China fails, it's going to fail on the basis of this politico military fusion. And that is happening now. It's being playing out. That is why China, for all its civil military fusion, right, for whatever it has achieved, in the past 10 years, it has sacked 127 generals, plus another 27 more are in the pipeline in 13 years. Right? If you take a count, it is one general per month. No nation can afford to do this, and that's not civil military fusion. That is politico military diffusion. Right? So that is the, as much as civil military fusion has got tremendous potential to take a nation up, it has got tremendous potential to kill a nation. If tomorrow China doesn't go beyond where it is, and I'm very sure, many people don't agree with me, I'm very sure it will not go for many reasons, right? Uh, the politico military fusion is the underlying red line in this, and that's playing out. In fact, for the past 7, 8 months, that's playing out. And that's the one reason which has actually put China economically down. So one has to look at it. That's why I said we need an Indian recipe of civil military fusion. If we don't look at an Indian recipe of civil military fusion, which does not, and it should not involve the politics of the day. It should not involve, the next Bihar elections. It should not involve, SIR, which is happening today, right? If you can keep that out, you can keep politics out, then civil military fusion is the ideal recipe for a nation to go up. I thought I'll put these points across because both these points are actually different points. One is what we are not able to do, the other is what we should not do. Right? This is what I had to say. I'm sure General Raj Shukla will start thinking about it and
No,
maybe start giving, thinking and probably write something more about it. Yeah.
let me give an immediate thought. What General Shankar is pointing out is extremely critical. Civil military fusion does not mean that you abandon your politicality. That would be foolish. Certainly not. In fact, China, as General Shankar points out, that is precisely the problem. Because in China, if I have to become a 3-star, I have to be part of the political maneuvering. I have to line up either behind Z or behind Hu Jintao.
Over.
In India, I don't have to do that. So I'm saying, see, why is India in a happy space? Because we have settled these debates. Nobody here, this business of what I quoted, Peter Fever. Peter Fever is settled. The civilian has a right to be wrong. The civilian is right even when he's wrong. We only salute and obey. But that civilian is the political principle, not the bureaucratic agent. So these theories are very clear. Political principle, bureaucratic agent, military agent. Bureaucratic agent and military agent must work hand in glove. CDS and the Defense Secretary. So certainly not the China way. I'm not for a moment saying that we get involved in all that politicality. And you see, if you get involved in it, look at the mess. As General Shankar was pointing out, 56 of their generals have been sacked. Every command, every theatre command, Lex Southern Command, everybody has been sacked. 2 rocket force commanders have been sacked. I mean, what better news? अगर ये इनका हार है तो बहुत अच्छी खबर है. But that is also, that is certainly not the Indian case. Nor are we the Pakistani case. Pakistan is a basket case because civil military relations has not been sorted out. If Munir is going to lead and Shahbaz Sharif is going to follow, that country is going to be in a perpetual mess. Our good point is we have settled that. Having settled that, we must now move with speed, embrace civil military fusion in the right ways so as to move towards strategic outcomes. And let me make just 2 points. Once again, while we all talk of Vasudev Kutumbukum, which is a lovely idea of one earth, one family, one futures, connectedness of humanity, Swami Vivekananda told us that the world is a gymnasium where nations come to make themselves strong. So civil and military again fusion. In thought there is fusion in our thinking. Look at what the USA does in a different form. They pick the talent from all over the world. That is the whole argument of H1B, whether it is good or bad. But that is the whole argument. And that talent gives them wealth and technology, and they have a global military. The 800 bases underwrite the dollar. The dollar is the reserve currency because of that military power. So, in every productive model, you see the civil and military aligning on the fundamental principle that the military is under complete political control. The Steve McChrystal incident tells us that. The Thimaya episode in our case tells us that. So, that has to be clear. And I don't know what General Shankar thinks. I am far happier to be a general in India than to be a general in Pakistan. I may have 6 plots,
I agree with you.
but a far upright life. So I think we're in a happy space, and because we're in a happy space, we must move with speed towards civil military fusion. One point I would like to make about the CDS. You see, when the CDS was created, I was DGPP. I saw all the opposition one night before it was created. So this CDS as a Sutradhar of civil military fusion is a big step forward. Around the same time, the Prime Minister in his address to the combined commanders said that the Indian military has produced people of great valor and all. We now need thought leaders to drive change through the national security system. So the CDS is a very challenging job to operate in the strategic military domain, strategic communications, drive change. So, while I'm talking of civil military fusions, I also realize the complexities of converting the thoughts into action.
Thank you so much, sir. I can't help but notice something that profound that General Raj Shukla mentioned. Much of the prowess of China today in its military is because they were clever enough to pick up pieces for cents on the dollar when Ukraine, the USSR was breaking up, and Ukraine was just giving away its technology for free, practically free. And growing up, one of the most important books on strength of materials, if I remember correctly, was by an author from Ukraine descent, Timoshenko. Timoshenko and Young is the defining book about strength of materials. Why strength of materials is important is you got to know what to use in which weapon, and for that you need to understand the strength of materials. Yours, I was an electronics engineering student, but I saw the value in that one course that I took on strength of materials. So many fundamental technological things were available around 91, 92, almost free of cost from Ukraine, that India did not look at, but China did pick up. I mean, unfortunately, we are still making up for lost ground, and I'm hoping that such path-breaking books will open the eyes of our youth also. And also, I would be remiss if I don't mention the story of a captain who left the Indian Army to start a new company called British Physical Laboratories. We all know it by its initials, BPL. Today, it might not be a force to reckon with. Go back 40 years. They were making oscilloscopes. They were one of the first ones to make a television. Amazing stuff. Captain Nambiar, I can't believe. And another one who went on to start Deccan Airlines, another ex-armed forces person. So we have all these gems that have come up. So let's hope that more such things happen. And General Raj Shukla wants to add. Go ahead, sir.
So as you were saying, I'll give you some other examples. There was a time when many Air Force chiefs, their appointment prior to becoming the Air Chief was to be Chairman HAL. Air Marshal Katre, Air Marshal PC Lal, General Ayappa, BEL. See, that brought the consumer closer to the manufacturer. And again, now everywhere silo, HAL apne silo. So we are remarkable at making silos. Usko hata do. Mr. Shri Iyer, today there are defense departments being created in universities with no military officer, not even a chaprasi from the military. So, what defense department? but उसने एक और silo पकड़ लिया. Instead of integrating, I mean, it takes some guts to create a defense department with no military inputs. But this is the way we are. So we really have to get over this. This nonsense.
Before we throw open the floor to questions, viewers, I have an extremely interesting example to share with you. I had come out of college and I was working for a company which sells equipment that goes into most of the defense equipment testing and things of that nature. And I was in Hyderabad. Hyderabad was the cradle of this stuff. There were lots of defense labs that were being opened, left, right, and center. Mishra Dhatu Nigam, Defense Metallurgical Research Lab, Defense Electronic Research Lab, Defense DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. I used to go to all these places, and I was close to the lab, so I was supposed to be open at 9 o'clock, if I remember correctly. 9:30, I'll land up there. You have to go through all this paper filling to say that who are you going to meet. You go into the lab, you're looking at scientists, level A, B, C, D, E, F, doesn't matter. The first thing I would see was they'll have two things open: wet canteen sheet and dry canteen sheet. What has come today? What can I buy today? And I think this is the cutting premier, organization. Why are these people so obsessed about wet canteen and dry canteen? This is early 80s. Then something dramatic happened, sir. Mid 80s, I might get my years wrong. Then something dramatic happened. APJ Abdul Kalam, he became the director of DRDO. Next time I went to the lab, people were saying, do you really have to meet you? I mean, I don't even have time to go to the bathroom. There are so many things I'm doing. Then you saw all these things come, Prithvi, Agni, Trishul, and all these things. One man made a huge difference in this whole bringing together all those things. I just wanted to say these things, that despite all the challenges that are thrown at the Indian establishment, somewhere something happens that kind of breaks through all these things, and we get so many effective technologies. I know General Ravi Shankar and I talked about his role in all these, missiles, because he was a very active participant in that too. So you go back and look at that. Viewers, the thing is, I want to leave this on a positive note, that we have done much. There is more that can be done, and you need to look at how American channels are starting to understand what took place in Op Sindoor now. People are beginning to realize what little India had and how much India achieved with that little stuff that India had. Of course, India is also going to be leapfrogging now. So everything, still work can be done, more things can happen, and India needs to really, really tap into its reservoir of accomplished individuals, perhaps sitting in United States and other countries, who are like, I want to go back and retire in India because life is much better now there, and start tapping into that talent. And once that starts happening, I can tell you, this is going to just leapfrog in leaps and bounds. Thank you so much, General Raj Shukla, and thank you so much.
He
Yes.
had a point.
Can I just make
Yeah.
I'll just tell you what talent we have and how that talent is not being utilized. When I was commanding my unit, 61 Medium Regiment in Hyderabad, they came back from a practice camp. I had to leave the practice camp early for some reason. They stayed back, and we clean our guns. So these chaps must have been lazy. They didn't clean their guns. When I came back, one day the SM comes. The co-commander had just visited me and gone, and the SM comes and tells me, salutes, and says, sir, 18 ki 18 gun, unki muzzle brake nahi khul gayi. Now that is a career-ending thing, as General Shankar would say, muzzle brake nahi khul gayi. I said, muzzle brake nahi khul gayi. So I went to my commander, who was a very good chap, magnanimous person, General Rajan, and he told me, boss, you're sealed, but I'll give you 1 month if you can do something about it. So I came back, I told my COEME, the COEME told the co-commander, and one team came to investigate. The co-commander was reported, and I was put on warning. And the co-commander, the true incident, co-commander told me, yeah, I thought you was going to higher command and all, but this I can't accept. 18 guns mean all 18 guns written off. What CO? You are fixed. So I told my chaps, yaar, iska kya kare? And 2 days later, I still remember his name, Major Sharma. He gets a local technician. See, Hyderabad is full of these DRDO
Yes.
labs.
Yes.
One young guy, and wo bahar khada tha in a South Indian in a dhoti. And this chap tells me, sir, he says ki main khol dunga. So I called him inside. I was खोल दो. I mean, I was willing to embrace him. मैंने कहा खोल दो, खोल दो. He says, sir, 1 लाख लगेगा. I said, 1 लाख छोड़ दो, 2 लाख. You know what he went and did? All these EME chaps had come and God knows what investigation. That chap took a measurement and very confidently told me, give me 24 hours. He came back with a precise vernier caliper and did one tuck in the muzzle brake.
Wow.
And all my EME chaps, that chap became DG EME later on. I used to keep throwing him, what is your bloody science? Your fundamentals are good. That chap came and opened it. So, I mean, we have so much talent. Not only you meet some startups in Delhi and all, great talent, but our ecosystem somehow does not prioritize this. So, the other thing, you look at our tragedies. We were the lead in missiles. We should have had the most modern drone missile force. The leading drone missile force. I know what we're going to do. Look at IT. Why did IT not convert into a natural lead in AI? Now we are struggling with LLMs. Because of the point that you make, Mr. Iyer, our great talent has to come back. Without that kind of talent, I don't think we'll deliver on these challenges.
Thank you so much, sir. General Shankar, concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Right, yesterday only I did this video. And this is based on something very, very interesting. I read the article in guancha.cn. Guancha is a hardcore Chinese media tabloid, completely against India. In that, I read an article which says, China cannot beat India's drug system, manufacturing, pharma. I was very interested. Why China cannot beat India's, pharma system? Went into it. It was written by a guy who is a PhD in pharmaceuticals. He did his graduation in China, went to Europe to do his post graduation, did this, doctorate in USA, came back, joined one of the leading pharmaceutical firms in China, and he's grown. And he writes an analysis. He says, despite everything, the Indian drug industry beats China hollow. And it supplants everything, whatever China, it takes all that kind of technology from USA legally and beats the US system. This is the fact. I gave this out in my video and I put it out, all that. Short video. Folks who are all interested, go to Gunner Shot. This is a video which I put out today morning. And I left it. I said, okay, fine. People saw nothing. Today I got a letter from a guy who is in USA. He's a lawyer. His father was in the pharmaceutical industry. And he writes and says, yes, whatever you've written is right. Whatever the Chinese fellow is saying is right. The Indian pharma and drug sector and industry is the best in the world. Right? And he's given a few things, and I'm maybe tomorrow or day after I'm going to read that letter out because it's worth knowing what that letter contains. And then I say, look, why is India not using this model where we have beaten China? We have beaten China hollow, and Chinese say that, and we have hoodwinked USA. I mean, to the extent that USA can't live without our drugs. And you are at the top of everything. And you don't even do R&D. Chinese R&D and American R&D is better than us. Okay? And this is acknowledged. And yet you beat everyone. Why don't we use that model for our defense industry, or for that matter, any industry? It beats me. It beats me to think as to why we have such a vibrant system we can't even copy. So I think there is more depth to it. You go into a little organizationally, you get into the civil military fusion is the way forward. Right? I just thought I'll put this, it's completely out of syllabus to the question. But at some level, it's part of that syllabus. It's part of the syllabus that you don't know your own ecosystem. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have a few questions for both of you gentlemen. Let's take some questions now, please. I hope it'll take a little bit of time. I hope about maybe 10-15 minutes more, and then we can wrap it up. I hope you're okay, sir. General Raj Shukla, these are for you, sir. Is China involved in shooting down USA jet in South China Sea? What are your views on Indonesia J-10C deal with China?
So, I won't rule this out because China for many years has been prioritizing the wraparound technologies over the platforms. So they are so good in this EW and the other stuff. And in this particular incident, if I'm not wrong, it is driven entirely by electronics and this whole data links. They are, linked to the carrier. So any interference with the electronics and data links could have led to this, bad landing or the pilot, missing the landing route. It is entirely possible. And the lesson for us is this. This is also from Sindhu. While platforms are important, the wraparound technologies are far more important. In fact, in our whole theaterization, the first two steps that must be taken is that space and cyber must be upgraded to combatant command status. Combatant. More than structures, we need these wraparound technologies. It is entirely possible. On this J-10C deal with China, I mean, now people are making choices. See, one thing is quite apparent to me that the way the Sino-US competition is playing out, you will get two different architectures. It's already happening in that space of DeepSeek and OpenAI. One is closed, the other is open. So I think the way the system is panning out, even in the military domain, countries will be forced to make choices. See, look at India's dilemma today. Strategic autonomy means what? Where are we going to get our technologies from? If it is not the US today, it is certainly not China. Where are they going to come from? All these things in stealth and radars and so on and so forth. We are nowhere in those technologies as far as Atmanirbharta is concerned. So we will also have to make these choices. And I think the Indonesians have just made this choice on the J-10C. But the overall, while people are raving about J-10C in Op Sindoor, apart from night one, the J-10s and the J-17s performed miserably. With the J-10s and J-17s, Pakistan lost complete control of the air. So Indonesia buying J-10, does it want to lose complete control of its air? So I'm not too impressed by the J-10. But strategic autonomy is a dilemma.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll leave it at that. There's a lot of stuff you can read from what General Raj Shukla said about Op Sindoor. You need to start spending more time. There is a lot of stuff that happened that time. Next question, again to you, Raj Shukla sir. Does your book have military or geopolitical cartoons like gunner shot videos for common man to understand a picture is worth 1,000 words?
No, sorry, I don't have the skills of General Shankar. I can't do anything. It's a very bland book, but interesting. Forget cartoons for a while and read the book. You'll find it. Anyway, see, this civil-military fusion lies at the heart of India's national security and our futures. So I and General Shankar will be dead and gone in a few years here and there. This civil-military fusion will really impact your futures. So forget the cartoons for a while and buy the book.
Next one, please. Again, General Raj Shukla, this is for you, sir. Civil-military fusion basically revolves around dual application of ideas, higher order thinking, and technology. Your views. I'll also ask General Shankar after you answer the question, General Shukla.
So absolutely, I'm saying it is first about thinking. It is a way of operation. It is statecraft. It has practical examples. I've given you practical examples. But it is also at the highest level. How you link your economy. What is the ultimate purpose? The ultimate purpose is economic productivity, technological excellence, and strategic heft. And for this to come together, it has to be civil-military fusion. As I said, every quiver, every arrow in the quiver of your statecraft, private sector, startups, everything in the pursuit of national security objectives. And national security here doesn't mean just the military. It means defense. It means foreign policy, technology, everything. See, even if you don't read the book, what is Ukraine? Ukraine is the war fighter, the technologist Elon Musk, the entrepreneur Alex Karp, the innovationist Palmer Luckey, the theater of war, and the marketplace coming together. So there is live evidence of how civil military fusion is impacting geostrategics.
Next question, please. Sir, would you like to add to that,
No, it's
General
okay.
Shankar?
No, we'll go ahead. We'll lose
Yeah.
time
Next
otherwise.
question, please. Sayantan Jana wants to know, please take my question. General Shukla, sir, can a GC cadet of IMA or OTA directly apply for Army Aviation Corps? Like they can fill preferences for other regiments or SF depending on vacancy. Sir, one small request. Can you expand all these acronyms?
So IMA is Indian Military Academy, OTA is Officers Training Academy, IMA is in Dehradun, OTA is in Chennai. IMA is for direct entry, OTA is generally for short service commission. Yes, I think Army Aviation Corps today, I am from Army Aviation by the way, but I could apply for Army Aviation only 4 to 5 years after being doing regimental service in the gunners. Today, Army Aviation you can apply straight away at IMA because Army Aviation now is an independent arm.
Even
Next
OTA,
one.
even from OTA, they can apply.
ETA.
This is for you, General Ravi Shankar. People like Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, and General Raj Shukla say China is technologically advanced, whereas we have the great General Shankar and Rajiv who say Chinese technology is garbage and underestimate them. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what I stand by what I say. यू नो वो बात वही है चाइना का माल चले तो चांद तक नहीं तो शाम तक right nothing is proven on ground you don't know every second day you see that cars burning on the road ये वो all that. So that technology is not certified technology. You see you have to differentiate between how they have advanced in technology and the Chinese character. There's a flaw in the Chinese character. Okay, that flaw is coming up. That doesn't mean that the process they've adopted to get to the technology is not correct. That is the smart part of it. The inherent dumb part of it is that the Chinese character is self-killing. It's like Basmaso. They kill themselves. And they're now applying it to technology also. I mean, let me explain. You people might, yeah, Basmaso, correct.
You had to mention it.
Yeah. They kill themselves. You see, if you see the history of China, Mao was responsible for killing 25 to 40 million people, the Chinese, through various his Great Leap Forward and all that cultural revolution, right? All the while hoping that even then he wanted China to become an export-oriented nation because the export then was grain and manufacturing. Manufacturing is in their veins, it's in their bloodline, but they failed. So that happened. So all the progress, every revolution, everything which he made, he killed people. Deng Xiaoping came. He's accredited with the fact that he opened up the economy and the great reforms and all that. But he's the guy who killed Chinese the most. How? One child policy. The fact that that one child policy has come, by the end of the century, China will be half the number of people what it was ever in its history. Means this Chinese civilization and its that race and that ethnicity is a dying race. He's finished it. That's the thing. And Xi Jinping has taken them on technology. And that technology will finish them. It is the process, of the thing. Why? 20 years back, they were overproducing coal, they were overproducing cement, they were overproducing steel, they were overproducing those things. Today they are overproducing EV, they're overproducing what's that car, batteries and solar and all that. So whatever they gain in technology terms, the party ethos and the thinking kills it. The leaders kill it. So to that extent, their own systems undermine their progress. That's it. And again, this is not my opinion, it is evidential. This is evidence. Right? You talk of three carriers they made. All three carriers are flawed. I mean, whoever has heard of a nuclear submarine in Wuhan sub thing last year, just sinking. It just sank under construction. So you will have this great leaps forward in Chinese technology, as well as the great depths which they will go to. That's China for you. You have to understand China in that larger context. Yeah.
General Shukla, would you like to add to that, sir?
I see these are nuanced arguments. They are complex. Uh, of course, China has many faults. I can point them out to you. I mean, rattle them off. These 56 generals are a very welcome sign. The Chinese march so spectacularly in the parade. There is no evidence to prove that people who march well also fight well. The Israelis and the Americans, they march horribly, but they have been fighting some wars. So there are so no direct things like that. But see, the larger point I'm making is this: Jan Shankar could well be right. But my quarrel with my own countrymen is this. China is 5 feet tall, biologically. What he does, for example, industrial capacity, fourth generation industrial revolution, he's the lead. That makes him 7, 8 feet tall. And what we don't do by making perpetual excuses, theater commands, we make him 9 feet tall, 10 feet tall. So if we do what we have to, he certainly is nothing to bother about. But we don't for various reasons. So I'm saying that General Shankar may well be right, but instead of hoping, speculating that he trips, why don't we do our stuff?
Yeah.
If we do our stuff, we'll be 7 feet. I so wish that there were two Chinese generals in Beijing, Wem Bombao and Jung Pangpao, who would be talking how Indians are ahead everywhere. But ulta ho raha hai.
I gave you that example of drugs and pharma industry.
Yes. So I'm
Not
saying
only we can't do it.
Yes. Why? The point is our ecosystem is not allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
That is the point. Delivery.
Viewers, another thing that India has comprehensively defeated China is in two-wheeler technology. Indian two-wheelers are not the cheapest yet. They dominate. If you go to any developing country, Africa or anywhere, wherever two-wheelers are being used, you will only see Indian vehicles. Somewhere they figured out how to successfully compete against the Chinese despite their overproducing prowess. On the two-wheeler industry, India continues to dominate. I hope it continues to dominate that. Another place where they figured out how to do things right. Next question, please. This is for you, General Shukla. Naresh Nilakantan wants to know, are we living in a bureaucracy of our military living in a mirage? Your views, sir.
Are you talking of a military bureaucracy?
I think he's taken that enigma wrapped in a something statement of Churchill.
He's very right, because my 2009 paper was an assault on the civil bureaucracy. But by the time I became an army commander, there was one bureaucracy worse than the civil bureaucracy, that was the military bureaucracy. Military bureaucracy is no better. So both bureaucracies need to collapse. I am making a larger argument. All silos need to go. I'll give you an example. So why should the office of the CDS not have a civilian technologist advising him in today's age? Why should the office of the Chief of Army Staff not have an innovationist advising him? Domain specialists. Why should they be outside government and not be in the MOD, somebody of the caliber of Raja Mohan or whatever? Why do we keep all this kind of talent outside? That's the problem. DRDO, the number 2 man, why should he be not from the military? Common sense. But ho hi nahi sakta. When I was the army commander and I gave a very intellectually a highbrow argument on theatre commands, theaterization and all, in the break everybody came to me and said, sir, wo jo hai na, the number of army commanders, 3 services put together, उनकी बस बंदर बाट बता दो क्या है, how many army, how many navy, how many air force. Come on, that can't be for a country of India's aspirations now. These kind of arguments have to end. So military bureaucracy is that bad if that is your question. I'm talking of bureaucracy anyway. And let me make one serious point say about the civil bureaucracy. It's not that they are not diligent bureaucrats. I see many good civilian diligent bureaucrats, but see what is the argument? Their argument is, sir, many file to move kardi to the next step. But that is not good enough. You have to beat the strategic military competition that is China, Varyag, साम दाम दंड भेद. वो फाइल नहीं, वो आउटकम में कमाल कर रहे हैं, हम प्रोसेस में कमाल कर रहे हैं.
Next one, please. Ashish Hegde wants to know. So this is for you, General Shankar. Sir, Indian Army ranks 4th, Air Force now 3rd. Should we invest more on the Navy, both in numbers and technology?
Look, there is no one for the other or other against the one, each other. You need all three of them in equal proportion. When I say equal proportion, you need all of them proportionately. A lot of people are talking that we need to expand the Navy and have a huge Navy. I go with it. But for a country of our size, with a population of our thing, land is very important. Land is very dear to people. So you can't ignore it. And to have, your grip on your own land, right, you need the Air Force next to you. So whether you like it or not, our thing will not change that much. Of course, we should give more to the Navy because proportionately give more to the Navy for the simple reason your boundaries are shifting and your boundaries are shifting more maritime.
General Shukla, you wanted to add, sir?
See, I want to. In India, we should stop using these terms now. It is a joint force. So there is a maritime theatre. It's not a Navy theatre. There is a Western theatre, which is a joint theatre, and there is an Eastern theatre. ये कब हम बंद करेंगे Army, Navy, Air Force briefing? It should be a joint briefing. And of course, the Western theatre, since it is predominantly land, the land assets will be more. But we should stop using these terms. It is a maritime theatre, a Western theatre, and an Eastern theatre. All three are joint, and not only in land, in Army, Navy, Air Force terms. Each of these theatres should have space, cyber, EW. I'm saying, talking of joint theatres everywhere. If we change the terminologies and the thought, it will be far more helpful.
This is the next question to General Shukla. According to you, please give a slight contour on the role of US civis using social media in the greater parlance of CMF.
So if you are talking, social media, strategic communications, these are natural spaces for technology geeks. For example, take TikTok. Now, TikTok is about reels here and there, but TikTok is also a strategic device with the algorithms controlled by the PLA and CCP to impact Western opinion. It molds opinion. So the China is doing it. The Americans are doing it. We also have ADGPI and all. We have a lot of these young people doing it. But I'm making an entirely different argument. Social media, print, electronic, they have become so critical. There should be a DG Stratcom in the office of the CDS. He should be the sharpest 3-star, and he must have all these people with him. Some influencers, some Twitter guys, all that people building the narrative, influencing the narrative. So it has to be once again a CMF kind of stuff where you have those young geeks, digital, what do you call them? Digital natives who understand the digital space and not digital immigrants like me who struggle with taking a selfie. So of course you have to have these a mix of
viewers, there are a few such sites that give you such pinpoint accurate information. They have been so effective in blunting the Western narratives that somebody took somehow they burrowed into Indian disinfo labs is what I'm trying to talk about. They actually went into this organization. They outed the person who was actually putting the data out. That's how scared when you are effectively rebutting with facts, they get rattled, especially that ecosystem that George Soros feeds, which is in also deep state. that it got really rattled with these info labs. Unfortunately, they have gone quiet in the last few months. I hope they come back. I've seen the data, it's amazing. So we need more disinfo labs, and you will start seeing that all these lies and invectives that others invent, they just immediately you fact check them, and that's how you have to do it. You cannot just ignore this. Ignoring is no longer an option, in my opinion. Next one, please. So this is for General Ravi Shankar. How does the book define fusion? Does it propose complete integration or a more nuanced approach of collaboration and coordination?
And I think Raj has to answer this.
General Shukla, go ahead, sir.
So, see, let me just give it to you with some examples. Today, we have a chief of defense staff. It is very much like what the Americans had in 1949. I'm giving you this example to tell you the journey that we have to take. 1949. Then you are saying that collaboration and coordination. In 1983, there was an Iran hostage rescue operation. The Navy, Air Force, and the Marines practiced for 6 months coordination, and it was an unmitigated disaster. Thereafter, the chairman joint chiefs, one of the chiefs broke ranks and said that the system is not working. It led to Barry Goldwater Nichols, and then you had integration. You had first, these merger of the digital theaters, network-centric warfare in Gulf War I, integration in Gulf War II, where a Bradley commander could call the fire of an F-16 straight away. And finally, when the two wars were being fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, predominantly land wars, the CNC of CENTCOM was a naval guy, Mike Mullen, not a murmur. So once the system settles down, all these things will go away. And if we don't take these baby steps, you will never get unmanned platforms. The Air Force will keep talking of piloted platforms. So it is just not this, structures, cultures, everywhere. Fusion means pick that which is in the best national interest and not say, see how we are regressing. Space, Air Force ko de diya, Bandar Bant. It has to be joint. Cyber has to be joint. This lead service concept has to go. We are regressing. And finally, we will come to a stage where for a particular job, for a particular attribute, if a startup can do technology better, why should it go to DRDO? Today, any startup has to go first through DRDO. So it is all these arguments. Complete fusion means all tribalism, all silos have to collapse. And that doesn't mean, that at the basic tactical level, you don't retain Army, Navy, Air Force attributes. A pilot will still matter, a tank commander will still matter. That every military mind knows. But as you grow in service, you have to converge. And finally, that has to be just complete fusion.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question, General Shankar. CMF cannot become a reality without a uniparty foreign policy direction like the Pentagon guides the politics of the US administration. Their deep state which dictates FP decisions. Sir.
Look, every state, every country has its own deep state. And luckily for us, a lot of things in our country also cross party lines. And there is continuity. It is not as if we don't have continuity. And I must also say that we have had equal amount of discontinuity in this business of civil-military fusion. It is not only this government or the previous government or the previous government. Civil-military fusion is a culture. And that culture is just about setting in. Just about setting in. I started seeing this setting in just about 2-3 years back, where everyone has started thinking about it. So it's going to take time, right? And generally, our foreign policy also has been, by and large, stable, barring a little here and there. So I'm not too worried about the fact that parties have to change, and we do need a specific deep state or things like that, or that military has to guide what the country has to do. I don't think we are not at there, or rather we don't have to be there.
You are absolutely right about foreign policy. From Visa Mata, we have come to Jaishankar doctrine. Big change. This is just my comments. I don't need you to agree or disagree
Yeah,
with me. A ATH Munraj Kumar wants to know, Atman Raj Kumar, I think. General Shukla sir, can you name a few leaders in the current military who can implement this civil military fusion? How long will it take?
See how long, if we are prepared to be disruptive and transformative. For example, theatre command should have been established in 1990. We are still debating 35 years. So if we want to keep debating another 20 years, we can keep debating. But if we want to do it, all these small steps can happen over the next 6 months, 1 year. And once you see, look at the CDS, though it was a baby step. This time, wasn't the integration far better? Our plans were chalked out in a few days. There was an integrated plan. You go back to 2611, I was in MO. The army made its plan over 30 days, then the Air Force commented on it. It was more like parliamentary proceedings than military action. So this time, see how it has happened very well. So the CDS has bought this. If you integrate the theatre commands, all these steps that I have said, cross-pollination in MOD, NSCS, fusion, civil faculty in the various war colleges, at the statecraft level. We were just talking of foreign policy. I somehow don't understand this distinction. This argument for a strong military should come from the ambassadors. Unless you have military leverage, what diplomacy will you do? So the argument should come from there. The ambassadors should say, hike the defense budget. They should want a strong military. So it is force and diplomacy being two sides of the foreign policy coin. When we say foreign policy will dictate defense, fundamentally it's a false premise. Force
so
and diplomacy are two sides of the foreign policy coin.
it's not a false premise, it's a self-defeating prophecy.
General Raj Shukla, where can our viewers get your book, sir?
It's on Amazon. I can send you the link.
Can you please put it up again? I'll give it full screen.
Yeah, so here's the book. It's on Amazon. You can pre-order it. If anybody wants a link, WhatsApp 85888 42630. I'll send you the link. 85888 42630.
Thank you so much, sir. We will put that link as part of our description. Viewers, do join us and read this book, get the book, and we can have a review session a little bit later on the book itself and how things are panning out. Certainly, India has proved itself in Opsandur, but now what happens is the other side is not going to sit idle. They're going to do one better. So India needs to also up its game. So a bit of a kimono opening has happened. And now what else do you have is the question that people will be asking. General Raj Shukla, you've really opened the eyes of me and our viewers to what lies ahead for India. And we all tend to touch upon here a few things, there a few things. But this is the most important thing, that how can, as a country, India's civil and military work together towards a greater goal. And I think we wish you all the best, sir. It's about 10 days old. It's been in the market. Viewers, you can buy it from Amazon. Give a big show of support to General Raj Shukla. Buy this book, read it, and then you can start putting comments on this particular video on what you thought the book was and how it impacted you. Thanks once again, General Raj Shukla. Thank you so much, Ravi Shankarji, for the idea that we should do this thing today. And viewers, again, my mistake. I keep saying Harimohan Singh. It is actually General Harimohan Iyer. I don't know why I've got it in my head that he's a Singh. To me, every army person is a Singh. So please excuse me for that. I get these words sometimes mixed up. General Harimohan Iyer, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Once again, thank you so much, gentlemen. Namaskar.
I want to say something. The sharpest minds in the Indian military have been Tamilian Brahmins. It's not only the Sikhs. It is Sundarji, General Padmanabhan. I know that General Shankar is a Tamilian, but South Indians have been the sharpest. Not the Sikhs alone. Thank you, sir, for doing this.
Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much.